to save beings. He is born into the family of King Tsingfan. He makes a trip to the 4 gates of the city and asks questions about an old man, a sick man and death. This bodhisattva is in possession of the 6 abhijnas when he is seated under the king of the trees. Moreover, the abhijnas previously held by this bodhisattva were not yet perfected, and it is now, during the 3 watches of the night, that they are really acquired. That this Buddha who exercises human qualities still has doubts of himself does not constitute a fault. Question. Concerning the order of the 6 abhijnas, the divine I always comes first, whereas the abhijna of the destruction of the impurities comes last. But is it always so? Answer. Most often, the divine I comes first and the knowledge of the destruction of the impurities comes last. However, sometimes, in consideration of the easiest method, either the divine hearing or the basis of magical power is placed first. Some say, the divine hearing is easy to obtain in the first dhyana because this dhyana involves inquiry, analysis, and 4 minds. The divine eye is easy to obtain in the second dhyana because the visual consciousness being absent there, the mind is concentrated and free of distraction. The abhijna of magical power is easy to obain in the 3rd dhyana because in this dhyana one experiences bliss physically. All the abhijnas are easy to obtain in the 4th dhyana because this dhyana is the place of all security. On the meaning of the 3 abhijnas. Memory of former abodes, etc. See above, p. 5-3f. What was said about the 10 powers. Second section, distinguishing the movements of mind of all beings. Like all the abhijnas, the 3rd abhijna or knowledge of others' minds concerns the thoughts of beings occupying the same level as that in which the abhijna has been obtained or a lower level. Thus, if he so wishes, an ascetic in the 4th dhyana can examine the minds of beings in kamadhatu and the 4 dhyanas, but not of formless beings. He knows only the minds of present beings but not those of future or past beings. Furthermore, an ascetic of dull faculties cannot take hold of the minds of a being of sharp faculties abiding on the same level as himself. Finally, a worldly person cannot know the minds of a Sravaka. A Sravaka is ignorant of those of a Pratyeka Buddha, and a Prateka Buddha knows nothing of those of a Buddha. Thus, effective though it may be, an abhijna is restricted to one realm and does not attain the totality of beings. However, in order to fulfill his ideal and assure the benefit and happiness of all creatures, the bodhisattva must know beforehand the minds of all the beings of the threefold world, past, future, and present. This is why he aspires to a parasittajnana higher than that of the 3rd abhijna. He understands, so the Prajnaparamita tells us, how to distinguish the movements of mind of all beings. Sarvasattvasita karatavaspandita. Although the text does not say it explicitly. This universal awareness, in space as well as in time, is the prerogative of the Buddhas and the great bodhisattvas of the 10th Bhumi and is only an aspect of omniscience par excellence. 1. E. Sarvakarajnata. But, someone will say, the world of beings is infinite and, infinity being without beginning or end, will never be known to the very end, from A to Z. But that is just a specious objection which the trait, once again, will refute victoriously. Sutra. The Bodhisattva Mahasattva who wishes to know the movements of mind of all beings must practice the perfection of wisdom. Sastra. I. Difference between the knowledge of another's mind and the awareness of the movements of mind of all beings. Question. In regard to the 6 abhijnas, we have just spoken about the abhijna of knowing another's mind. Why does the Prajnaparamita Sutra repeat it here? Answer. The abhijna of knowing the mind of another has a restricted range. It knows only the minds and mental events of presently existing beings belonging to the desire realm and the form realm. But it does not know the minds and mental events of past and future beings or beings belonging to the formless realm. Among ordinary people, the abhijnas that depend on the 4 higher dhyanas have as their realm the level on which the abhijna has been acquired or a lower level. They are fully cognizant of the minds and mental events of the beings situated in the 4 continents. Among the Sravakas, the abhijnas that depend on the 4 higher dhyanas have as their domain the level on which the abhijna has been acquired or a lower level. They are fully aware of the minds and mental events of beings occupying 1,000 universes. Among the pratyeka Buddhas, the abhijnas that depend on the 4 higher dhyanas have as their domain the level on which the abhijna has been acquired or a lower level. They are fully cognizant of the minds and mental events of beings occupying 100,000 universes. Ascetics of dull faculties of a higher level cannot cognize the minds and mental events of ascetics of sharp faculties of a lower level. Worldly people cannot cognize the minds and mental events of Sravakas. Sravakas cannot cognize the minds and mental events of pratyeka Buddhas. Pratyeka Buddhas cannot cognize the minds and mental events of the Buddhas. This is why the Prajnaparamita Sutras says that the Bodhisattva Mahasattva who wants to know the movements of the mind of all beings 5C should practice the perfection of wisdom. 2. The movements of mind are cognized by an infallible liberation. Question. By what knowledge can one cognize the minds and mental events of all beings? Answer. The Buddhas possess an unhindered liberation and, having entered into this liberation, they cognize the minds and mental events of all beings. The great bodhisattvas, having a semblance of unhindered liberation, can also cognize the minds and mental events of all beings. Thus the beginning bodhisattvas would like to obtain this unhindered liberation of the great bodhisattvas and this unhindered liberation of the Buddhas and, by means of this unhindered liberation, cognize the minds and mental events of all beings. The great bodhisattvas would like to obtain the unhindered liberation of the Buddhas. This is why the Prajnaparamita Sutra, although it has already spoken of the abhijna of knowing the minds of others, speaks again of the bodhisattva who, wanting to cognize the movements of mind of all beings, should practice the perfection of wisdom. Question. When movements of mind are spoken of here, either the mind has gone or the mind has not yet gone. If it has gone, one is without mind, like a dead man. If the mind has not gone, how would one cognize it? Actually, the Buddha said, it is in dependence on the mind as antecedent organ and on the Dharma as object that the mental consciousness arises. If the mind has not gone, there is no meeting between the manas organ and the Dharma object. Answer. You should know that the mind does not leave and does not stay. Actually, it is said in the Prajnaparamita, all dharmas are without the nature of coming and going. Then why do you speak here of a mind having an arrival and a departure?